Is the recording starting? I know we're still a couple minutes out, but I just want to get it.
Can I ask you one question?
Sure.
Sandy? Do you know if our bylaws are on the city website?
Yes, I believe that they are, okay, but I can double check that.
All right, if they're not. can we
Yeah,
get-
I'll
We
put that
should
on
get
the
Okay,
folder.
thank you. We get that. General code.
General code, very exciting. I spoke about that on.
I heard that part, yeah.
Okay, just good, keep saying it.
About when I left, I was in the car when I heard that, so.
You're like, that must be Hadassah, someone's talking about general code on Buff Joseph. And shouting out the clerks.
So what's the name of the new member?
Caitlin. Sirna, I think is how you say it.
We have a new member already.
Yes, we appointed one last night.
And the two more vacancies. to
And there's
fill?
one more vacancy to fill.
One to.
She got hers in, she's the only person that got it in by the deadline. And she's master's in sustainable communities from Binghamton and works, her work experience is extensive, but like the big names that people would know are, I put them down here because I spoke about it last week.
Exxon Mobil.
No, that was not, that was not on there. It was, here we go.
Monsanto.
So I nominated her. She has a master's in science and sustainable communities, has current and past work history related to sustainability and agriculture. Organizations include Binghamton Farmers Market, Vines, Cornell Cooperative Extension, and a lot more.
Oh, she's
Like-
overqualified.
Yeah, so it didn't take much convincing unanimous support for her appointment.
So now how is that gonna work? Is it just for one meeting or? is it
No,
for-
no, so I looked up Ashley's letter. I used her letter to create her letter, and it's through 2025.
Okay, good.
Can you just sign?
Yeah.
it?
Yep.
Does that have the spelling of Caitlin's name on it?
SIRNA.
Let's see.
That's
Oh, come on.
IRMA. And the first name?
See if I have a better.
Caitlin.
Sorry.
I don't keep them backwards.
Nope. Sorry.
What's
Oh,
the
we
first
can-
name? Hadassah, please.
Caitlin.
Caitlin.
K-A-I-T-L-Y-N.
Uh,
You joining us today? No.
Yes.
Yeah.
She's just going signing the oath book right now so that she can be sworn in before. I'm like,
Can I do that?
you better have,
You did, y'all did. Yeah,
you know.
you want me to sign your place in the book? Take a
Well, once
picture
you,
for
once you
posterity?
took the oath as city clerk, you're in forever.
That's a lot.
Actually, we should have a group picture taken today.
Yeah.
Last meeting of the year.
You are. Feel free.
I'll post it up on the.
I like
And
your
the
hat.
holiday
Are you
coverage.
representing the Kremlin?
You know, I bought this many years ago in front of the Flushing Post Office for $5. It keeps me so warm.
Yeah.
Where-
The bylaws
where
are
in
not
Moscow
posted
did
on the
you get it?
website.
Huh?
Where in Moscow did you get it?
Yeah.
Just
So
call
we're at
Tom
2:02.
Yeah.
Well,
Darn
let's
it.
wait for Caitlin to come back.
Okay. And the bylaws, your
Hi,
question
Darius.
is not
Hope
on
you're-
there, so I'm gonna.
Hope you start to feel better.
Oh, no.
Thank you.
Um,
Did we get a spelling for the last name?
Yes,
What is it?
SIRMA.
Oh, that's easy enough. And how do you pronounce that? Hadassah?
I have no idea.
Oh, when she introduces. it.
Oh.
Oh, there's.
Oh,
Hi.
Oh, one more. We're gonna pop you one more. She was sitting.
We have a new member.
We have a new member who's sitting there.
Okay,
can't
it's
tell.
still here?
Yeah,
Yeah.
Okay.
the video is already going.
She's doing her oath.
She's doing her oath
She
so that
claimed
she
it.
can be official when she comes in.
You get to
Okay.
add some special effects now to the video.
Scott, can we ask you a favor? If,
Yeah.
Eric's gotta leave at 3. The meeting goes past that. Can you finish the minutes?
I also have to leave. it.
Okay, I can do that.
You need a paper and pen or?
I
can
can
get-
take up tape.
I'll give
Got
you
an
mine.
extra tape or you
I can give you mine if I leave.
Okay,
If I leave.
I got a pen.
Okay, good.
Okay.
Uh,
Then we just have to figure out how to
We're
get
just
it back to
waiting
me.
for the swearing in of the new member, Caitlin. I'm guessing Surma, but we'll wait to hear her pronounce. it.
Caitlin's, okay,
SIRM.
all right. Adasa, could I ask you something? The agenda for the city council meeting last night wasn't very descriptive on a few things, like, so they did vote on RS 24-162, right?
They did.
They changed it
Yeah.
into an ordinance and then voted on it. Got a new number.
I can't follow
It's
the number
it's
there.
ordinance
Well, the
one
zone.
twenty,
The zoning, yes, the zoning passed.
yeah.
But my question is, like, why isn't it where you can see it in the agenda?
Because the more confusing it is, the less likely there's.
There's
gonna
a
be
standard
anybody
format to the agendas.
properly
It's on there
in
as
opposition to
ordinance
that.
120.
Yeah, I
Oh,
remember I was looking
120
for
instead of
some more
RL.
in there, and it gets so confusing.
Okay,
with
thank you.
preliminary numbers.
Yeah.
And the actual numbers.
Right. I know.
Like, well, I was trying to track some of the ARPA money.
Hmm.
And it became very difficult.
Yeah.
There's a lot of promises for a lot of money that just like. Deals were made and then the money just disappeared and the offers disappeared.
The ARPA money.
Yeah,
46 million it started out with.
So we got a little less than 1% back last night. Hooray,
request to postpone.
better than nothing.
Well,
Yeah, they almost 275,000 to this trades organization for free trades training within Robinson Street. That just disappeared. I was gonna volunteer over that. He's doing-
It just became
Okay.
official, congratulations.
Thank you.
Welcome. All right, we're gonna call to order. The Commission for Conservation and Environment. City of Binghamton, and it is 2:06. Thursday, December 19th. Okay, roll call.
Richard,
Here,
Caitlin,
Here.
Scott,
here,
Darius,
Here.
Tom.
Here.
Julian.
Yep.
Laura.
Here.
Sharon Day and,
Here.
and me, that makes 9.
Okay, we got a full house.
Plus
An
our
ex
council
officio.
President.
Ex officio. City Council President.
And I'm here,
Radovsky is here.
present.
As usual. No other ex officio members from the city of Binghamton are in attendance. Hopefully we can improve on in 2025. Welcome to our new member. Would you like to introduce yourself, Caitlin?
yeah.
Can you pronounce your last name?
Cerna. Cerna.
Serna, okay.
With
Yes.
N.
I
Yeah, yeah, the
have
R and the N looks like an M, Cerna.
Caitlin Serna, okay.
Yeah,
Great.
I have been in the city of Binghamton for about 10 years. I worked at Vines when I first moved here and Cornell Cooperative Extension, so most of my environmental knowledge comes from the agricultural section and yeah, I currently work for Northeast SARE, which is a federal
Northeast,
SARE, Sustainable Agriculture Research and Education. It's a federal grant program. So I run 2 other grant programs and we administer about $7 million of funding in those 2 programs.
For what?
For primarily farmers and researchers.
Mhm.
The 2 that I run are graduate students, so I work with a lot of different like school institutions. And then the other one is research for novel approaches. So it's like very innovative, new on the cusp agriculture type research.
and how far is your region?
Northeast, it's like West Virginia and up.
Oh,
Whoa.
Yeah,
big.
yeah. But yeah, I saw the opening and I just turned out of the board in NOFA, New York, and was looking for another way to be in the community. So it was perfect timing.
Great, well, we look forward.
Yeah, we're glad to have
your numbers.
Thanks.
We need all the help we can get.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Okay. Approval of minutes for the November meeting. Any comments? Anybody want to make a motion?
Sure. I
Motion
move
by
that we
Julian.
accept the minutes for the November meeting.
Second.
Second by Richard. All in favor?
I,
Aye. Uh,
Abstain, please.
abstain, yep, okay, so we'll say 8 in favor and 1 abstention for a new member. Public comment. Would anybody like to
So
speak?
public is
Okay.
okay.
Where's Nate?
No
He
talking,
said he was coming.
He was here a minute.
Yeah, he's coming. I think he's coming.
no talking ghosts. Being as how there's no public present, we'll move on to previous business. I put this in here just so you know, I sent a request. I sent our section of the city charter that refers to the commission to the New York State Open Meetings Law. Because I think, my interpretation, I think the subcommittees are not a public body in that they have no authority or anything. Anything has to be recommended back to the overall commission for any votes or going to council or anything else before it goes to the public or anywhere else. So I want to get the committee on open meetings law in New York State. I'm asking for their comments and what their opinion is.
So you're waiting for a response?
So, yeah, I sent that in probably a week or 10 days ago. So, I mean, we'll just go as we have been going in the meantime. I mean, we've been following the open meetings law to the nth degree and then some, I believe. Even the subcommittees. I find it to be cumbersome. And if you wanted to have, I don't think that was the intent of the open meetings law for New York State, to have a couple members of a commission or subcommittee meeting to discuss transportation or bicycle traffic or anything along there, that's got to be recorded, it has to be notified to the public 24 hours in advance and so forth and so on. It makes it pretty hard for just regular people that are volunteers to go through this process. To me, I think we should get more done if we didn't have to do that for subcommittee meetings.
Well, on the other hand, it ensures that the public has notice of if they don't make public comment, they can.
Yeah, but they're gonna have an opportunity. It has to come back to the commission for any discussion or vote on anything, and they have ample opportunity. They can even join the committees if they would like.
But if
And-
they don't,
and
how are
all
they gonna
those-
find out about the committees?
Well,
One of the
all
ways
those,
is they can
all
watch
those
Get
YouTube
are in,
recordings.
all those are in our committee reports, and those are in the minutes of the meetings. And if there's any, I mean, we do have a committee for communications and outreach, right?
Yeah,
So those, I mean, as we get going, it's taken a while. I mean, we're just for your information, Caitlin.
Mhm.
This commission has been in the city charter since I believe 1970, if I'm not mistaken.
early '70s, yeah.
But it was basically decommissioned for decades. It hasn't been in place for, what do you think, since the 90s?
Yeah.
Julian?
I actually was on it in the 90s, under a different name, I don't know why. Yeah, but it fizzled, yeah.
So it's just been resurrected this year.
Okay,
So we're still trying to, we're still getting our sea legs, so to speak, as far as how we operate and how the meetings go and our topics. And we've had a lot of interaction with city council, I would say. We just started meeting in March or
April 11th.
April. Okay, was our first meeting. So we've had several meetings with city council. Council President Matovetsky has been heavily involved in the commission, was instrumental in getting it started. So we're just getting going, so bear with us.
Just,
Yeah, and this is a unique body because it's the only commission in the city that is fully appointed by city council.
Okay.
So that's very unusual, as this is the only one.
I was just wondering, sort of, would city council like to give us some feedback on how they think we're behaving vis-a-vis them?
I don't know if that's where we're at in the meeting.
Yeah.
But.
Maybe not yet, but maybe a
Yeah.
little more.
Yeah,
I'm just wondering, we
Yeah.
would like to have some feedback too, I would reckon.
yeah.
Why don't we talk about that under
New business.
new business, city employees engagement and participation with the commission, even though city council aren't city employees. But
Apparently,
well,
it's debatable.
no, I don't believe you are. It's a separate entity. I don't know, what do you think, Tom? What was that? City
Whether or
council
not
members
city
are
council
not
and city employees. They have told us we do not have the right,
Oh,
right.
I don't know.
Who signs your paycheck? That's your employer.
I mean, I
Okay.
have a staff badge, but
Who does
that's
sign your paycheck, the mayor? Comptroller.
comptroller, yeah. I know, it's direct deposit.
Well, he
But-
also signs the.
But anyway, this is a derailing discussion
Contractors.
of the ongoing dispute between
All right,
city council and the city on as to whether or not we get the rights as being employees. Anyway, go on.
well, that's a good conversation we'll have on the city employee engagement. Okay, committee reports. Communications.
Okay, we had our first meeting of the Outreach and Education Committee. And that was yesterday, and Darius and I were voted in as co-chairs of the committee. Instead of having a chair and vice chair, we're gonna be co-chairs of that committee.
Okay, and the committee so far is,
Darius, myself, and Shreyash. But Shreyash was not in attendance yesterday, he's back in Queens.
for the health.
He said he wanted to be on that committee.
Okay,
In fact, that was the first committee that he wanted to be on, except that we hadn't met yet, so that's why he came to the eco-toxicology. So he likes both of them now. But he's
Okay, so I'll email IT to add those names to that committee for the website.
But he and I collaborated on the South Side Assembly presentation recently. And he's very reliable, very interested, and very dedicated to, getting information and putting it into form to communicate, so.
great.
That presentation, for your information, was on the zoning
Yeah,
issue.
yes. And so what we talked about
Ancient
yesterday,
What?
Ancient history.
Yeah, it is now, yes.
what we spoke about yesterday was that we intend to go around to the different groups, not just the South Side, but the other groups in the neighborhood. And maybe also schools, high school, SUNY Broome, SUNY, and one I just thought of, Darius, is we could also do presentations at the library for people who don't belong to any groups but might be interested in the topic.
I have a question, maybe had asked maybe.
Like reserved rooms?
Are there any other neighborhood assemblies still meeting?
Yeah,
Yeah,
There are.
yes. Councilman Kavanaugh and Councilwoman Middleton do a joint West Side meeting. Some of the meetings, I know Councilman Porter's attends, I think, or has attended the Neighborhood Watch. He's
Yeah.
mentioned before in the north side, and I'm not sure, Councilman Dundon mentioned meeting, and I'm not sure if the east side one is a Neighborhood Watch or which is maybe less of a fit than a neighborhood assembly, but There's at least active neighborhood watches, even in locations where there's no neighborhood assembly.
There's one way
Well,
up on
that's a whole
Chenango
different-
Street.
No, I know, but
That's a
there's,
whole different thing.
yeah,
It's that north side, the one
But
goes
the-
up on Chenango.
but West Side definitely has one.
West.
Councilman Kavanaugh and Councilwoman Middleton announce it. During constituent comments.
Dundon, what about Hotchkiss? I think there's one on the church
Yeah, the
by
north side
Chenango.
has
up-
something.
Upper
It's
Chenango
out of
Street.
the
Yeah.
League Artist Center.
Oh, well, that would make sense. I'm just going off of what I can remember people saying during
Yeah, yeah.
constituent comments.
Well, there was numerous ones, 10 years ago or 15 years ago, there was one at least at each side of town.
Well,
East
each
side, north
district,
side,
they
south
have
side,
each council
and
district,
west side.
and 5 and 6 merged.
Yeah, right, southeast and southwest.
And apparently, so did
I mean, that's a good place to get
the west side
public
merged.
information out, I think.
And then, yeah, right, Darius, anything, did I miss anything?
No, weren't we talking about how the north side one acts more like a assembly than a neighborhood watch? So that one could be an option too.
Yeah. We didn't have all the names, but we realized it's, most of them meet like once a month in the evenings sometimes. And,
Well,
We did-
we'll
we
try and get
didn't
a
set up
formal-
any-
We'll try and get a formal list and contacts for those.
yeah. So that was our first meeting, so we basically just wanted to set up,
Okay.
the chair and talk about what our mission would be and how we would go about it.
Okay, good.
And so that takes care of that committee. Native,
Native Gardens,
Oh, we had a meeting on December 5th. But I don't have the minutes from the meeting yet. So, but it was basically an organizational meeting, talked similar to that, what you just said. Looking for our goals. So since I have minutes, I'll distribute them and then discuss them again.
okay.
And Ashley was on our committee. So, our task force. So if someone else wants to get involved with that. This is a project for your.
I was gonna say, someone who knows something about plants might
Well,
be,
it's a real, it's.
might be a
interesting
good fit.
because, two of the
Well,
comments-
I'm on the committee, actually.
Yeah, no, I know
so
you
it's-
are, Jim.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. I thought it.
Yes, we have Tom, Julian, and Jill are on the task
Yeah,
force.
Jill
It's
is-
not a committee for some reason. This one's a task force.
Jill's not a commission member, she's. What do we call those people that are?
Committee.
Committee members,
Although this is a task
Subcommittee
force.
member.
Yeah.
Right,
task force,
Task force member.
because you're gonna get a law implemented in 2025, so that's like an urgent thing.
Mm,
To
good,
get the garden started in the
Yeah.
floodplains. by
so,
June,
two topics I was gonna raise to you at some point, which I can do now is, Julian, did you raise a question about urban orchards? Permaculture?
Yeah, I'm trying to remember what,
Someone-
well, anyway, yeah, I wasn't able to find out much. I still want to talk to Amelia about it because.
about permaculture?
Yeah, the idea was Dick Andrus,
Mhm.
had this idea of developing orchards on a lot of the vacant lots of the city.
Mm.
And I did ask Nick in Parks, what's his last name? I'm sorry.
Ballard,
Ballard, exactly. Yeah, and he said he didn't have much information, so.
Find some information
So-
about that.
Yeah.
What's that?
The Dick Andrus community orchard. I think.
Yeah, well, there is a community orchard, yeah, it's actually, it's his old property on, yeah. That was a separate issue, this was developing a wider range of orchards, and that was his idea, and I loved the idea, and but I was trying to find out just how far he got with it. He died a couple of years ago, so.
So I was on the committee, the original committee for that orchard.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and one thing I observed was that. It's pretty labor intensive. Just at the scale that it's at,
Yeah,
But when I was still employed by the city, at various conferences I went to, one in Wisconsin and one in Baltimore. More in line with what Dick was talking about. They call that permaculture, which is where
Okay.
you come in. But really looking at a scale that's like competitive with the agricultural industry at large. In other words, your orchard would be like Green Brothers Orchard, except it would be urban agriculture. I mean, that scale, and that scale would require much greater
yeah.
resources than what's being used to sustain that orchard, all voluntary and whatnot. So there's just this pretty big gap. And I also heard or had training on crops other than orchards that were permaculture, things like a blueberry farm maybe, or something like that.
Shiitake mushroom logs.
That too. So I did think it would be good to open a discussion with Amelia also. Maybe we can get her to come to a meeting.
Yeah.
To just hear what her thoughts are, and I certainly want to hear what your thoughts are. Whether that's actually been successful. I think Detroit was possibly engaged in that in a real way, where they were actually at scale.
Farming.
Yeah, you know.
When I was at Vines, Dick was still around and
Right,
we were working on the orchard project a little bit. We toured a facility in Philly that was a pretty good model.
Okay.
In terms of like neighborhood size and what the community engagement kind of looked like, because it is very labor intensive
Right.
for any permaculture even.
And
Even blueberries requirements.
one of the other things that kind of gets lost in the sauce of the discussion is like just the political implications of like having an orchard. And let's say the city owns a number of FEMA lots in neighborhoods where I can imagine people wouldn't want permaculture going on in their neighborhood. You know what I mean? So there's always that element too.
I was thinking of liability. Every time
Everything's got.
a discussion about anything, the answer is
Yeah.
liability. We
But
don't
it's a
want people
subject-
walking on city land
Right.
that isn't.
So strategies and tactics.
Yeah, well, so we'll just work on that in
Get
committee.
the
and then come
overall
back. Yeah.
idea or
Yeah.
goal
Yeah.
first, and then we can work. on
Yeah,
the strategies
absolutely.
and go
But
from
just so you know, we're
there.
talking about.
Yeah.
Well, and I'll throw out there, at some point, there was a bill or an attempt at a bill to do something about just like urban agriculture stuff more generally in terms of on private property that didn't end up passing or going anywhere.
Yeah,
So I know in terms of as a council member, I've gotten complaints about neighbors' compost piles, and there's no kind of clear instructions as to what's a compost pile and what's not, so that makes kind of gray areas of like, is your pile of rotting vegetables a compost pile? Or is it a pile of rotting vegetable, so like kind of best practices around composting so that you're not having mice and whatnot impacting your neighbor's neighborhood. So I know just bouncing off of like, I think that there's maybe an opportunity for a comprehensive
Develop
look.
a guide, set of guidelines for the composting.
Compost, I mean, there's,
Start-
backyard chickens, all these types of, there's all these kind of discussion points that relate to producing food within the city.
So one last thing that I'm pretty sure we discussed it some detail because it's a hobby horse of mine, but the city doesn't have a comprehensive property manager, shockingly. I don't think there's anyone in City Hall, and I got kind of an answer back from the planning department. You might have noticed that like you can go on the GIS and see the vacant property.
Right.
And it's like, okay, I know, I've known that I was a vacant property department when I was in code, but it doesn't tell me what the condition of the property is. It doesn't tell me what the potential uses are. It doesn't tell me what zoning it has in its future, let's say, rather than in its present, because in its present, it's classified as vacant land. And it may be in an R2 or an R1 or in commercial district or wherever, but there's nobody in City Hall who's like keeping an inventory, monitoring the inventory, making recommendations to the mayor, to the council, that these are lots we should be selling in a fiduciary responsible way. And these are lots we should never sell because they're part of the floodplain and we have other ways of managing these lots, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And so I just get really kind of stressed out when people talk about how to use the vacant land because we don't even know what we're talking about, basically. You know, I can come up, I distributed a list of all the vacant lots that are currently owned by the city, but it doesn't tell you a lot. It tells you.
Yeah, I mean, I think we're all pretty well aware at this point that the planning department is deficient as far as having manpower to do anything meaningful. As far as sustainability goes, they don't have the manpower.
Right.
A lot of things, there's lots of good ideas that come up, but there's no one to implement them.
So there's no templates, basically, for saying like, these are the 12 ways we could be using vacant land in the
Yeah,
city.
it doesn't seem to be a priority.
No,
I mean, there was a position in planning at one time.
yes, there was. And
So,
the vacant property.
Matter of fact, it was Amelia.
It was Amelia.
Dolce was the sustainable plan.
Right. And just to be clear about the vacant property officer position, which I believe is now back in code enforcement after it was in planning. Just so everyone understands, that person doesn't manage vacant property. What their job is to go to private landowners who are holding land without structures and register that, or structures that have been abandoned or
Unoccupied, yeah.
and register them in our vacant property program. But they're
Which
not a
includes a
vacant
fee.
property manager. And you'd be surprised at the blank looks you might get about some of the questions we might ask about vacant property, just because it's not in their scope.
So, I mean, hopefully in 2025, one of our goals would be to lobby the current administration to move in that direction. For the 2026 budget, to look at restating some of those positions. And a lot of these positions would more than pay for themselves. So, you know, to me personally, as a taxpayer, I don't want to hear about the tax burden of it because I could find in their budget plenty of money to fund 5 of those positions very easily. And no one in the city of Binghamton would notice any lower services or levels of service. I'm very confident. So, like most things, it goes back to the meaning. And priorities, prioritizing.
Can I just check, Caitlin? Are you interested in being on Managed Native Gardens Task Force?
I am interested. I'm also interested to.
Hear
learn
about the
more
other ones.
all of them,
Okay,
yeah.
all right.
But
When
yeah,
we're
definitely
done,
interested.
please let me know because I'm gonna hold to send one email to IT
Sure.
to update the committees.
Is anyone else, Laura, are you interested
am,
in
yeah.
Okay.
being in Native Gardens? So, there you go. The committee is loading up.
Yeah, and I could see where that,
Task force.
as we mature, it could even splinter. That committee, just because there's so much there, there's a lot there, that, like. No joke, no pun.
I think the task force part of it was getting it started. I think we're into the committee mode because it's gonna be an ongoing thing.
So that concludes my report.
Okay, thank you very much, Tom. Now, once again, as I've misrepresented.
Eco-toxicology.
Ecotoxicology. I
Eco-toxicology.
have an issue with putting eco before that, just like a brain thing.
And we also had that meeting yesterday with Darius is the vice chair and secretary.
And who's in there?
Darius, myself, and Shreyash and Scott.
I'm sorry, did you say the date of your meeting?
Yesterday,
Okay.
18th.
Thank you.
And the Ecotoxicology Committee has 2 task forces, has a water task force and has a Parks and Recreation task force. And we talked about adding a 3rd one called food, but then we thought that maybe we don't want to have so we want to go maybe beyond just looking at toxins in food and chemicals in food and look more also at the good nutrition parts of food. So if we want to broaden the scope, we talked about adding a committee, a food committee to this body rather than have a task force in the ecotoxicology committee. So in that behalf, I guess, should I wait till new business before I propose it, or can I propose it now? Because it came up yesterday in the meeting.
What's that for?
A food committee that would look at both the good aspects of food and the negative aspects.
Is this all under the umbrella of toxicology? Ecotoxicology?
Well,
Or is
part of
you're
it is,
talking
I'd say
about-
most of it is
What are you talking about? Starting
a task
new-
force. Yeah, but then we-
New subcommittee.
Yeah, but the ecotoxicology would be concerned more with like pesticides in foods, food colorings, artificial ingredients that may be harmful. Whereas if we had a food committee on the environment, then we could talk about organic produce and the good parts of nutrition.
It seems to me like those are two separate. I would keep the one stuff under ecotoxicology.
Okay, we can
And
do
then the
that.
other stuff may end up coming under. It may come out of native gardens as that expands and things evolve around agriculture.
Well, I wish we had more of our diet based on native gardens, but the fact is we don't.
I would
But we
just
still
leave
have
it-
organic.
I would leave it
Yes.
under that for now.
Hmm?
I would leave
I
that
would
part of it. on
Think
that.
about how it relates to city level determinations as well.
Well, yeah, I mean, I'm hoping we can get some low hanging fruit next year. To make some progress on. I mean, there's big picture stuff and then there's. Things that. Would seem like they could be accomplished in less than a year. Anyways,
All right, so anyway, that was one thing, and then the Parks and Recreation. Part of it was. That we had recently gotten a FOIL request back. And. We asked Parks Department for a list of. Invoices and. So on with regard to the chemicals that they use during the year. So, and we said that including but not limited to pesticides, larvicides, herbicides. Et cetera,
or did
right?
they give you a copy of their MSDS sheets?
Well, they gave us some invoices, but all of them were pool chemicals related. So most of it was chlorine and then a few test strips that they use for the pool and then something they call mint cleaner. And that was it. I mean, there was no pesticides, no herbicides, no fertilizers, nothing of that
Well,
nature.
if you asked them, if you foiled a request for their MSDS sheets, they would have to,
MSDS?
yes, material safety data sheets.
It's called something else now.
I'm sure that they're required
Oh,
to
yeah.
have them post them at the garage, post them where they're used. That's in public and private
It's,
everywhere in this country.
it's state health laws, sure.
Yeah, that's federal. And it's, yeah.
There's supposed to be,
Yeah.
there's supposed to be.
Because I ever worked on any construction site, they always said they have to keep the book open. You have, and everybody's allowed access to them.
So in any event, Sam told us yesterday that that we should appeal by writing to the mayor's office, that if you don't get what you're asking for, send an appeal to the mayor's office. So we'll do that next.
And I would,
And also,
I would request the
okay, we'll do that,
MSDS,
so
and then. Ask for a copy of the procedures as far as handling goes.
we're gonna probably do a bunch of foils to get set for the future, because we've learned from this experience that they try to drag it out as long as they can.
If I'm not mistaken, the MSDS sheets will spell out proper handling of everything that's there.
Mhm.
So. What the MSDS sheets would give you. To your purpose would be what? And all the things attached to what, but it's not gonna tell you how much they actually use. Or where they used it,
Mhm.
or to what purpose they used it.
No, but it's a starting point.
Of course it
It's
is.
a basis.
No, I'm not disagreeing. By the way, I'm on a website. It says SDS, BSDS, and MSDS are all terms referring to
So include them all.
gradations of that MSDS.
What's the other one?
They've evolved out of
It's,
that.
yes, it looks that way. SDS, which is a safety data sheet. Then there's MSDS, which is a material safety data sheet. And then there's a PSDS, which is a product safety data sheet.
PFDS?
Peter, Sam, David, Sam.
Oh,
So that's probably comes from the manufacturer.
oh, it's all STS at the end.
Yeah, so,
Safety data.
but I thought there was a municipal. Policy or something that said all the. Departments had to consolidate it, so they're like that was gonna be
Citywide one.
under the.
Yeah, the firemen will have. a
City
different one.
risk managers office, I believe, in the past, whether that's true anymore, but that's another one of those. Things that when the institutional memory breaks down, things like that don't get done. Seriously. So that would be a point of inquiry also, observe comprehensive inventory, and it's regulated. So you can't say, well, we stopped doing that 5 years ago.
Well, you can.
Yeah, and a couple of years ago, there was an accident on the south side where they over applied the herbicide and all the plants died. It was on the overpass of Pennsylvania.
Yeah,
Avenue.
I remember that.
Do you remember that? Yeah.
That would have been the state, isn't it? I think that's the state.
I think the Parks Department.
Yeah.
I'm not sure, but that's what I recall.
It's the state bridge, isn't it?
What's that?
The flyover at Penn Ave. I thought that was the state bridge.
Yes,
Does the state maintain it?
yes.
They made them negotiate
Plans.
with the city. I don't know.
They're
That's.
they're supposed to. Oh, as far as the,
Right.
where they put
Plants.
those, swales.
No,
On the
they have
trail?
like, they have a few trees they put there and some plants.
I would go to DOT. New York State Department of Transportation would be my first stop,
For that, okay.
unless they have a agreement with the city to do it. I believe it's state responsibility.
Sometimes they do that. They do that with the lighting. They do that with signal.
There's different,
They pay for them and then the city
Jurisdiction.
takes control.
And then
anything
we
else?
also, we
Eco
also,
toxicology?
yeah, ecotoxicology, we decided that we will, go ahead and put in RL for the fluoride removal from the water supply beginning next year.
Make sure to include the vote. 5-4.
So are you submitting that as an individual? Or? Not the
Well,
committee that.
No, it is a committee. It was-
Well, the
had a majority
commission
vote.
voted.
Yeah.
You could put it in, the commission voted 5-4.
But I didn't know the commission could actually write a request for resolution.
That's a good question.
Well,
I thought
didn't
just
we
make
do
a
that for the
recommendation.
bylaws already?
No, but what was voted on was a recommendation to city council.
Yeah.
That they dropped the fluoride, just for your
Yes.
sake, Kate.
Yeah,
So that's up to city council to do that.
but they're not gonna do that.
Then you'd have to do it as an individual, the way I
Yeah,
understand. We don't have that power.
that's not in our purview to. We're just here to recommend for city council.
So, you as an individual can put in a request and you can. In your justification, put the.
You can
the
say that
commission-
the commission
and
voted
voted.
to recommend this.
Yeah.
to city
Because there's
council.
no. But the city. I'm just trying to think
At
about
the
like
end
what
of
the
the
city
day,
charter
city
says.
council is gonna have to vote on it.
Right, yeah, doesn't that automatically go to the?
Well,
city council?
technically, they don't have to vote on it. If it's not
Oh.
signed out, it will not get
Okay.
voted on.
Okay. All right,
Sign, what does sign out mean?
the RL, request for
If it doesn't,
registration.
yeah,
If they don't sign it out.
it doesn't go
For
for a vote.
discussion.
That's where I got confused about the zoning, because I only saw 3 names on there yesterday.
Right, so to sign out legislation, it's either 2 people from the committee that it's assigned to, or a majority of the city council has to sign it out, and then it goes for a vote.
Just process.
So, it seems like the committee could do it then. Because.
I would have to
recommendation
check,
came from
I'd have to check the charter, but I know individual residents can submit. I
Because
don't
we
know,
were unanimous in the committee, and
Yeah.
I'm sure that the other members. will
Yeah, but
be
the
involved.
committee just gives recommendations to the commission.
Yeah, but
And
then the commission,
had a vote approved.
vote to recommend.
To recommend to city council, not anything about any legislation. That's up to them to decide. They're the ones that vote on the city dates or not. So it's.
But you as an individual
at the
can
end of
submit
the
it,
day-
and everyone on that committee who would like to put their name on it, can put their name on it.
okay,
If you're looking for results, which I think you are, at the end of the day, city council has to vote on it or choose not to vote on it,
right,
and then it's moved. So how you get there, this is just the process.
well, at least if we have an RL, then we go to
Okay,
a
to
work
present.
session, right, and make a
Or a committee
presentation
meeting.
to the.
So you'd have to do the
Which
RL.
committee would
You
that
would have to
be?
do the RL.
It will be up to the president in the new year
Oh,
to assign
really?
it to a committee.
That's my point, Richard.
Yeah.
You would have to do that as individuals,
Okay,
not as the.
But you could bring the fact that the
Yeah.
majority voted
Yes.
as part of your,
Yes,
okay,
that could be in your.
presentation,
Yeah, sure.
okay,
Thank you, absolutely.
Because it's public knowledge.
Right,
Anyway,
right.
we made that recommendation.
and I stated it in the public meeting.
Yes.
yes.
It's on the radio today.
It was on the radio.
Okay,
I will just say that I had an opposing view, and I want to express that to city council somehow. As you know that I had an opposing view about the resolution. I know that the majority here voted for it, but. How do I,
So there'll be public comment. You can always submit public comment,
good,
and you can always speak.
thank you.
Yeah.
So that we're done with ecotoxicology.
okay, moving on. Transportation, we have not had a meeting yet. So right now, there is Julian and myself. So we will look at getting together, hopefully before our next meeting.
Yeah, any other participants maybe?
And I will be contacting Scott Riegel from
Yes,
BMT in the meantime, which I've already been in touch
Yep,
with Scott.
good.
But I haven't heard back with anything new.
and I'll throw out. Ithaca has sidewalk districts.
Sidewalk district.
Yeah, so they have, like, if I understood the concept correctly, the people that in the neighborhoods pay taxes that go to a specific fund to repair their sidewalks, rather than, right now, if something happens to your sidewalk, you owe 50% of it unless the city is already redoing your whole street.
Well, there's what they call a
I don't-
50/50 program. for
Yeah.
Sidewalks.
So there's other models
If it
that
hasn't
might
been
improve
redone in, I
our
believe
site.
it's 20 years or 10 years, I'm not sure the time frame.
Yeah,
But if it's because the city tree, which any of the trees that are in the utility strip between the curb and sidewalk are actually city trees. So if those roots are pushing up the sidewalk, you can request that they be replaced or repaired. They do have a machine now where they can bevel ones that are just tipped a little bit rather than replacing it. Which I'd rather see it be that than in kind. It's way less expensive, way less concrete, and it serves the same purpose.
I just-
pretty much.
Throwing out that that was one idea that came across that's like, because obviously buses is the county level, not the city level. But in terms of transit in neighborhoods where the walkability is low because the sidewalks are crumbling, there are other models.
Personally, I'm more focused
throw
on
it in.
bicycle lanes. myself,
Okay,
but,
all right, I
uh,
was just throwing it out
anyway.
there as possible discussion.
And also bicycle lanes of BU and whatnot.
Yeah.
Over.
Yeah. I have a
There's
comment.
a lot of trails that need to be connected. What's that?
Not about bicycle.
Okay,
Could the minutes reflect that, I would suggest to the transportation committee that we get clarification from the city engineer and from, public works and from the county transit about who's really responsible for bus shelters. And that's a loaded question, because it could be who's installing them or locating them and who's maintaining them and.
I think it's the county because Bob Westler was asking me if they need any bus shelters in the area.
Yeah, well, I know some people are under the impression that the county, but in my experience, the county does and doesn't do bus shelters in the city of Binghamton the same way they do them elsewhere. So they may,
last I knew they install
but that's one sliver of the whole thing, because it's like, where do they install them? Why do they install them? Who requests it? Who approves it? Who pays for it? Who maintains it? Who decommissions it? I had a lot of experience.
them. Another question will ask BMTS because I'm pretty confident that they know the answer to that.
I appreciate that, but I would ask as many people as you can ask, because I've asked a question and I've gotten very contradictory answers.
Well, that's why I only ask people that I trust in the answer.
The deputy commissioner or the commissioner of the transit system or whatever his name is, told the deputy clerk that it's the city's problem. Well, that's the county. That's the person in charge of transit.
Sure.
I don't know its name. Do you know?
No,
All right.
but the minutes will reflect your,
Just my interest
It
in
used to
that
be
topic.
George Bagnetto, I don't know.
I'm gonna say we don't agree.
Okay, well, that's an issue that the transportation committee will take up. Thank you. Starting with BMTS, which is Binghamton Metropolitan Transportation Study. Good.
All right,
All the federal funds go through them.
okay, so we've got 9 minutes for those of us leaving.
Okay,
at
so
3.
that's where we were with transportation. Now we're gonna move on to new business. Membership looking for applicants.
I've been continuing to announce the request for applicants at
Happy
every
to see
city
a new
council
member. That's
meetings. We
great.
have a new member. I have one more applicant for the planned vacancy that we're gonna have in January. But if there are other people to apply, that's, always good to have options and to get for council to really sit and think and marinate and get the advice on what skill sets maybe you're looking for, or to try and think about
Well, we're trying to build the organization.
do a SWOT.
And diversify from.
Strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, like what types of skill sets does this commission need in order to be successful?
No, my apologies. We should have gone around and introduced ourselves.
Oh, yeah, well, we could do that right-
Yourself and one of us introduce ourselves.
That's all right.
My humble apologies. Scott, might as well start with you. Go clockwise.
Scott's the one I know.
Okay,
Caitlin's and Vines and,
great.
I'm with the Sierra Club too, I don't know. if you remember, but okay.
I'm Tom Costello. I'm a former city employee, was the director of code enforcement and building construction for about 10 years. I also worked as a deputy commissioner of public works with Group. And now I'm retired, so I'm a citizen again.
I'm Hadassah, I'm city council president for just a few more weeks. And I will be just staying on as a regular city council person. We'll be determining in January who the ex officio will be that will be designated to this commission, which may or may not be me.
Okay, I'm Julian Shepherd. I'm just, I taught biology there for 50 years and taught things like conservation biology and all sorts of other things like bird courses and bug courses. So anyway, I actually just recently retired, but I am continuing to
Congratulations.
teach there.
Oh, but you're still teaching. You're retired, but still teaching.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
should've let you finish
on a
your sentence.
part-time basis. And it's called a Bartle Professorship. I call it by a slightly degenerate name.
And he's a hike, what do they call it? What's the term for how much bike riding you do?
Oh, I don't know a lot of it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They have many a news article about his extensive bike riding.
Yeah. Mainly as a commuter, actually.
Yeah.
I don't go on long bike trips, but
I'm Laura Bond. I was the most recent member before you. I'm also with Vines, my site coordinator actually at the Laurel Garden too. I'm also in the master gardening program at Cornell Extension, so that's fun. I'm new-ish, so I'm in the insurance industry now, post-public health, looking to transition to sustainable communities. So this interested me. I just finished the Eco Ambassador course, and in undergrad I was an Eco Ambassador as well. So a lot of interest that's growing, and I have a young daughter as well. So keeping myself busy and learning more about sustainable environments like within the communities. Learning about it. So I learn a lot from everybody here. So I'm excited to meet you.
Luke Day, current chair for the commission. I'm a former City of Binghamton head of Public Works Department for 8 years under Matt Ryan, 2006 to 2013. And I'm a retired union pipe fitter and welding inspector.
So my name's Eric Dank. I took an interest in this committee after discussing it with Vanessa, and I've managed 2 farmers markets in Broome County for a total of about 10 or 11 years, and I have an interest in institutional food waste and also just kind of farm to consumer distribution of agricultural products. It also, I don't know if I told everybody this at the first meeting, but I was once a member of the city council for about 8 years and city clerk for 3. So I know my way around the city government a little bit. And my term is expiring in a few weeks and I'm not returning to the board by my choice. So
But maybe we'll recruit him back for a subcommittee.
that's possible.
When we get into composting.
But yeah.
I'm Richard Giannaccio, and I've been in Binghamton now for 7 years. I'm originally from New York City. And I have degrees in biology undergrad and masters in journalism and mass communication. I was in the science writing program at the University of Wisconsin, where I got my master's. And I guess when it comes to environment, more writing and activism. I published an article in the Wisconsin newspapers about PCBs in Lake Michigan. Associated Press picked it up and ran it around the country. One of 2 stories that got national distribution. The other one was shaken baby syndrome. And I was the first journalist to write about shaken baby syndrome. Story behind that. The doctor called me up and said, public needs to know about this. We know about it in the profession. In Queens, there's a former Army base called Fort Totten, and I was community co-chair with the Army to look at the mercury contamination of Fort Totten. It's called a RAB, Restoration Advisory Board, that the federal government sets up with the community. And there was a story about that in the New York Times about it was very rare to get the Army to agree to anything, but they did agree to clean it up. And then, of course, they fired the Army co-chair who agreed to clean it up and replaced them and took back what they promised, so. It was a short-lived success. Then as president of Flushing, West Flushing Civic Association, I prevented construction at a site that was formerly occupied by a gasoline station, had leaked underground fumes that were the neighbors making them sick when they started digging there, and it turned out that gasoline degrades into naphthalene, which is even more toxic than benzene. And so that's part of my background. I have a very keen interest in looking at scientific literature and dissecting it, looking at the materials and methods and how they got the results, and not just the conclusions. And that's how you can separate the good science from the science that probably should have been worked on more before it got published. So that's what I'm kind of.
I'll be in contact. Yeah, okay.
I'll be doing this if you don't just.
Yeah.
Here I'm
Sorry.
on this commission, I'm
Oh,
chair of the
Let Darius go.
Ecotoxicology Committee. What are we going off? I'll see you again. Ecotoxicology Committee, Bylaws Committee.
I want to make sure I know what
yes,
committees you
I will
want, so
message you.
the natural task force. Right, have you added on that?
And co-chair with Darius on the Communications Committee.
No, it takes, especially with everyone going on for break.
Yes.
we're time to get out.
Right, or if I had offered.
And then,
Darius?
yep, I'm Darius Manning. I'm a environmental studies student over at Binghamton in my senior year. I volunteered in the nature preserve with the steward of the nature preserve over at the Binghamton University, helping like manage the land there. I've worked with NIPERG, the New York Public Interest Research Group, advocating for environmental legislation. And I work at the Ross Park Zoo on the south side, and that's where I met Hadassah, and she told me about this opportunity, and it just seemed like a good opportunity to get more involved in the community. And it was related to what I was studying, so I thought it was a good opportunity.
Great.
Thank you.
Darius. One thing, let's see, membership, so we have a new member. I do believe they have a few applications, but anybody that knows anybody that's a city resident that's interested, please ask them to forward through email to the clerk's office their resume with just a note saying they'd like to be considered to be on the commission. And if they don't want to be on the full commission, if they're interested in any of the topics we come up, we welcome all members to join committees. We are going to have to get a new secretary next year. Don't all jump at once. Because Eric, we voted Eric in because he missed a meeting. He agreed to do it.
Let's nominate his replacement.
He agreed to do it, thankfully. And Scott has pitched it and done a tremendous job, I must say.
You're trying to get me to do it some more, I can tell.
Could I ask this, would you do it just for the January meeting until we get somebody?
Yeah, I'm gonna be away, I could tell you, but I'll be here for the January meeting.
January meeting.
Be away for a few months after that, and I'll be tying in on Zoom.
You're gonna be-
It won't be as good for me to do it on Zoom.
You're gonna be in Utah,
Yeah,
working at the national park?
yeah.
Zion,
What's that?
in Zion, which one?
Bryce Canyon, yeah.
All my family's in.
Isn't that just full of snow in February?
Well, we don't know what to expect on that regard.
I wondered if it was even open, but.
Imagine.
No, it's
depends
open.
On the elevation, if you're up high or if you're down low.
Yeah, it's high, but it's not in a real snowy area.
It isn't, okay.
Like
just-
northern Utah.
I camped at the Grand Canyon, there was snow on top and it was 80 at the bottom.
Oh my
by the time
gosh.
we got down there.
Yeah.
This is off topic. Are you going for like vacation? Are you working over there?
Volunteering.
Volunteering?
Yeah.
We'll miss you.
Yeah,
See
well,
you.
I'll be joining in on Zoom.
Okay, so hopefully we're gonna get tons of applicants. and the city council does all the appointing, so they'll sift through them. And then we'll get a full complement, I guess just Eric's position, so one more person on the commission will make it full. I myself am gonna be gone a greater part of the year, next year, and I will zoom in when I'm not here. Be babysitting in Seattle for at least 3 months.
We used to be acting as chairman. Too.
I plan on not acting as chairman. It'll be up to the new city council. I'll do it for January, and hopefully the new city council will pick a new chairperson. And, we'll
That's
go from
kind of
there.
an awkward, well, we got Hadassah to weigh in on that, but
Yes.
the rest of them, I mean, I would hope she would.
She's on it, the case, yeah.
Yes. And she's aware. of that. I said I was gonna be gone 3 to 6 months next year, so at least minimum of 3 months. So, anyway, but I will zoom in and still be involved in committees and wanna still.
Well, thank you very
Thank you,
much
thanks.
for doing it. Yeah,
Well, I
really.
appreciate your patience with me. It's not my specialty. I'm more of a nuts and bolts person. I worked as a welder most of my life.
So I
City,
think it was quite a challenge to get this going again because we didn't really have a good roadmap, you know.
yeah, I actually started working on it a year ago in November to get the commission started and everything. And I found it in the charter and I was like, what's this? So I was looking through, anyway,
I really liked a lot of the ideas that you had in the draft of the bylaws and, you know, as the chair of that committee, I
had a lot more energy at that point. It's been drained out of me. I forgot how draining dealing with the city is. I took a break for 10 years where I had very little to no involvement in anything. For 10 years after being the head of public works for 8 years it was quite a burnout, but 3 major floods. Anyway, that was the interesting part. So city employees engagement, I'm hoping that 2025, we figure out a way to get the ex officio members to come. Right now, the administration seems to be telling department heads and whatnot that not to come to these meetings and not to be involved in anything because it's city council approval. So far they just wanted to play politics with it, which I don't look at this as a political organization. As easy as it would be to slip into that, I do my best not to go there. Because it's just what's best for the city and what's best for the environment, what's best for the people. It doesn't, trees don't care how you voted or what your colors are or anything else. They really don't.
Ex officio or planning, presumably, anybody, who else?
Planning, parks. Really somebody from Public Works should be here. And there's a lot of things that we could and are willing to help them with as far as some of the work. I brought in an old plowing map, snow removal. Just to make it easy for city council to look at the districts, how they're all broken up. I have no idea how they plan it now.
Yeah.
But this is city council's work session room.
Okay.
So they meet in here regularly, so they can at least look at that map that we developed years ago. And it took us a while to refine it, but we had it down pretty good. As far as snow removal and salting and whatnot. A lot of it is salting to reduce how much salt you put out and get the biggest bang for your buck. I mean, get it to be most useful. People have no idea how many tens of thousands of tons of salt go into the street that ends up going into the creeks, it ends up going to a treatment plant, ends up going to the river, causes a lot of deterioration, parking ramps, you name it. It's really bad. But we did a lot of times use a more expensive product that's less abrasive. And,
Kelsey?
yeah, and not, but it's quite a bit more expensive.
Yep.
It's effective, and we tried various ways. We did reduce it by quite a bit from how it was being distributed. But if somebody gets killed in a car accident, in a hill at an intersection, it's kind of hard to make the argument of why you didn't solve, because you didn't want to corrode the manhole covers or get it in the sewage treatment plant.
Yeah.
When somebody's kid just got run over, you know what I mean? So you gotta have a balance with public safety and the environment. And also, there's a full-size flood map. So that people, like, when they come to the work session, when they're talking about building, development, different things, at least they can get a view of those areas, kind of like should create a red flag, in my opinion, just for starters. Just to get an idea. It's easier to look at it on a big map. Or get to that
It's
city
it's
line.
like interesting that some of the oldest neighborhoods
I'm on
in the
that
city are where the water is, the inundation,
Well, and transportation used to be the river.
I know.
So that's why most places people live along canals, rivers, rail lines.
And my understanding is this is the proposed FEMA map.
Well, this
This
is,
is the inundation map.
this
Right,
is, yeah,
yeah.
this is inundation. It's nothing official. It
Oh.
gives you a vantage point of,
Okay,
this is what happened in 2010, basically.
yeah,
This is the areas that were affected. Hopefully that part in the first ward in the upper left is less, because there has been a lot of work done on Trout Brook. But that was done maybe 10 years ago, so that should help that neighborhood.
It's also can be misleading because the FEMA maps, what's not on this map that they really should see is what's now classified as a flood vulnerable area, which is that tongue between the two rivers behind the levees. Like there's a new FEMA classification that came into effect in the last decade.
Oh,
And it's called area with known flood risk, but not identified as being in the floodplain. And only historically, only houses in the or commercial businesses in the floodplain designated area could buy flood insurance through the federal flood insurance program. So your bank knows you're in a flood vulnerable area, but when they tell you to buy flood insurance, you can't get subsidized or even federal flood insurance. A lot of companies don't even sell flood insurance. So you're caught between a rock and a hard place. And it means that people won't be able to get mortgages but if you do research on Google, you can find a lot of literature about that. It's happening all over the country. The flood vulnerable areas, this new designation. Because our levies aren't certified levies. And 3 out of 4, I think, stretches or however many, I think there were actually like 12, but about 75% of them don't have enough freeboard anymore.
which is supposed to be 20 inches above.
3 feet.
3 feet? Used to be 20 inches.
It's 3 feet of freeboard.
above the biggest flood ever.
About the high, they set the water line, whatever whatever that number is, and then it's 3 feet above that elevation. But all the preliminary maps have all that information. The FEMA website's really great. I mean, in terms of getting information about where we're at. But very interesting. So that's just one thing, see there.
Okay,
Excuse me, but are we almost done?
Yes.
I've got to leave if not.
yes, no, I
Okay.
think we're good. If
Okay.
anybody else has
Future
anything
meetings,
else, future meetings. So.
It's
Shall
just
we,
got a motion to adjourn.
shall we stay at the same third Thursday? One of the people, well, 2 of the people it was to accommodate
One was Ashley.
was Ashley and Hadassah. So Hadassah doesn't know what her role is gonna be yet next year, but maybe for January, should we just keep it
Sounds good.
on the third Thursday at
Yeah,
one?
that works.
Typically 1:15. Typically 1:15, we put it at 2 because the clerk's had a holiday thing today.
And before we adjourn, Julian, you had a question on what city council thinks we're doing?
Yeah, thanks
so-
for bringing that up. I just thought having experienced us forwarding things to the city council, I wondered if they say, hey, you know, too much, too little, or, anyway. Just feedback, yeah,
Well, why don't we ask Fidel so we can do that by email?
yeah, okay,
I mean, I can do it if you want.
yeah,
It's a
that would be fine,
Simple request, okay.
yeah.
Well, I might reach out and do this. They mentioned last night, I watched on YouTube, the meeting. And they talked about people coming to their, you know, why don't people come to their caucus meeting? Councilwoman Kenya, I can't think of her last name, Middleton mentioned, you know, people should come to the caucus meeting. I thought you had to be invited to those. But at some point, I think we should meet with city council as a body
Yeah, it's
for
another,
a discussion, maybe at a work session,
yeah.
you know, ask them to cut out a half an hour. Where we could just have an open discussion,
Yeah.
open on the air to the world.
That's
The
true.
caucus is more of a private political thing, so that probably wouldn't be right.
Could you explain the caucus a little bit?
Caucus is that's their parties by party, like if there's Republicans, city council, they have a caucus meeting. And so that, thinking out loud, that wouldn't be the place for us to go.
Right,
Because that's the Democratic caucus. That's where they can talk
Yeah,
openly
alright.
about political, whatever they want to talk about.
Do you wanna
Maybe
make
political.
note that you'll be asking for a meeting with all city council?
Yeah, I'll send out a request to have one of the work sessions invite us, and give everybody ample notice, so we could just come and have just an open discussion to what they're looking for. Councilperson, Kavanaugh mentioned a couple meetings ago, he was here, and he said, you know, was talking about various things about what we could do. He said, you know, getting grants would be great, which, after working for the city of Binghamton for 8 years, getting grants is not always great. Sometimes it's great, sometimes it's not. But I think if we could get a grant for a sustainable coordinator for the city, with them in agreement that they would put it in the budget. You know, because I know Ashley brought up a concern about that. She said, well, you can't get a grant for a position that's ongoing or whatever, and I beg to differ with that opinion. I see the police and fire do it like all the time. But if we could get it for part of the year or get a person up and running in that position, it would require some lobbying, require the administration to be somewhat in agreement. I think it would be hard for them to argue if we could find a way to pay for it, at least for that part of the year, and then they could lobby to have it permanently in the budget. Because, like you said, I firmly believe that it would more than pay for itself financially and exponentially in many other ways. I mean, one person would put a small dent in it. I mean, they need several. It's just, there's that much to do. It's time consuming.
Now, I noticed in the charter that we are the only commission that doesn't get stipend.
Oh, I don't think we're the only one. I think we're one
The
of
only one I
maybe,
saw.
maybe 2 or 3. What's that?
I think they're in different categories.
What do you mean by that?
They're
I looked
kind
at
of
all-
goes back to
they
the
have
budget.
commission.
We're not a
I looked
budgeted,
at the
we're not a
commissions.
budgeted
Yeah,
committee.
we're
It
not.
wasn't in the bylaws.
Well, and part of that is because we're all appointed by city council.
Right.
And it's the mayor's budget. It's not city council's budget. They can thumb it up or thumb down if they don't.
Oh, they can't
Make the
add
budget.
anything into it?
I don't believe so. They can request it, but the mayor has to, he submits the budget to them. They don't submit a budget.
And they cannot modify it?
Yeah, they can modify it down.
Oh, because you were saying that they were gonna put in some request for that $75 fee that we paid, that you paid.
I asked them to do that,
Right, so they
That's
can't
not-
do it?
but they can ask for that. Or the clerk's office. I mean, city council has a budget for them. But they have to submit it. Like their salary is set. Like a term or 2 terms before they're even in there. Like if they wanna vote to up the salary for city council. Like right now, I think it would have to be in like 2029 budget. Or 2027 budget. It can't be during their term, can't be during the current term. It has to be for the next term.
So
For their own,
Just
but
to
I think
answer-
I think they can request funding like, for certain things like that, like for stationery. for
Yeah, but I
clothes or
mean,
something like that.
the other commissions, they all get like 575. It's not a lot of money, but it's something, right?
Yeah, I don't see that.
Except for
happening.
us.
I don't see that happening. Can I city council, but.
Huh? Yeah.
Some motion in adjourn. Gotta go.
Yeah, thanks.
Motion to adjourn, can I have a second?
I'll second it.
Second by Richard.
I have a wife waiting. You don't keep a wife waiting.
Sorry. Probably our humble apologies. And happy holidays.
Yeah, you too.
So, yeah, offline.
I did give the
Send your
clerk
names on
some
legislation.
candies for
Whether or not you're gonna
Leopold.
get it started.
Yeah, from the commission.
If you're on a committee.
And then you
It
said
doesn't
the
necessarily
receipt.
say how much.
We want
That's
to.
in the budget. But it's
So
on, so you want
Just
permission.
read
You want
the-
to-
There was,
We want to keep them on the inside.
The reason I saw it was I was reaching out to my counselor.
The ordinance.
Very
they
helpful.
created a
Trying to
planning
figure
commission,
out the maps weren't updated online.
Right?
Planning commission?
But I was reaching out to.
Look at that on the planning commission, I received this stipend.
Yeah.
It's a law
because I
that
was
created
trying
the
to say,
plan.
I planned
It says there's no-
accidental.
They're
good at accidental.
Yeah.
They really will not, we said it will receive a stipend. or-
Yeah, so,
So,
what match?
and it will say a line like to be established by, document.
Oh,
established by-
Just online when they do this.
We're done, it's empowered them to, by Darius, by how much they get.
The online.
You know,